Man, I'm glad to be here. Glad to be with you guys. Excited to see what Jesus is going to do this week. And then is our conversation all week. And you know as well as I do that any fail video you watch on YouTube, there's always that and then moment. You know that half the good stories you've got have all got this moment of, man, I was doing this and then. Some of my most embarrassing moments, my moments are around that. Any freshmen here? Okay. Freshman, oh, don't boo them. You were once a freshman too. Freshman year, at least going into my freshman year, I remember being at this church event and there was this really cute girl that I was talking to and I thought she was just gorgeous, man. Like half the church things that I did were because of cute girls. I'll just full on admit that when I was in high school. I did not have all the maturity of the men in this room. Let's just say that. Anyway. Thought this girl was cute, talking to her, everything's going so great. I'm trying to like chat and talk and carry on, like thinking maybe she's into me, but she's probably not. But I'm working everything I've got with all of my freshman coolness. And I will never forget, out of the corner of my eye, I'm sitting there and there's this table right here next to us. And it's got like this display on it thing at our church. I don't even know what it's all about. But I'm talking to this girl and I'm locked in on her. And all of a sudden, like, I don't know if I bumped the table or what, but this display that's standing up starts to wobble and to shake. But I don't want to break eye contact because she's just hot and I'm paying attention to her. And I think, man, if I look away and I'm in the zone with this girl, if I don't keep her eye contact, it's all over. So I'm just staring at her and I'm watching this thing start to shake and I realize, like, dude, it's going to fall on me and fall on her. I got to stop this, but I can't break eye contact because I might lose the moment. I'm in the zone, staring this girl down, trying to chat. It's shaking behind us, and all of a sudden I'm like, I got this. My Cadillac reflexes. Like, I've got good reflexes. My eye-hand coordination is money. So all of a sudden, this thing's starting to tumble, and I thought, sweet, I'll just reach around, and then, I literally full-on palmed another dude's butt cheek. I know I got one cheek, and there's a way that I know I got one cheek. I full on just sitting there staring at her, boom, trying to grab the display from behind, keep eye contact, and I full on just like, grab and squeeze because I was trying to keep that thing, I was gonna catch it. And all of a sudden he just goes, dude, you just grabbed my butt. It broke eye contact, night was over, lost the girl, and then, I'm just telling you, and then has been a defining moment for me in so many times. I will never forget, college. Had my own room, finally. Anybody heading off to college this year? There we go. I remember being in college. I'd gone through, I'm at my junior year, I finally get my own room. Everything's great. And then all of a sudden, I'm an RA, I'm overseeing this floor, guys, and this dude walks down and he's like, I'm quitting school, I can't take it anymore, I hate my roommate. And I'm like, oh, crap. Well, this kid had been in my youth group, and I was a youth pastor at this church, and he came to college, go to college there where I was at, and I was like, all right, this sucks, but you can move in with me. So he moves in with me so he won't quit school, and he's my roommate now. I didn't want a roommate, and all the time, this dumb freshman in college, no offense to you guys going to college, he keeps talking about this girl that he likes. Blah, 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 blah. Keeps talking about her. Won't shut up. And I'm just listening. I'm an upperclassman, like, dude, go on and on about this cute freshman girl. No big deal. We go off that night. He and I go play some tennis. We're hanging out, just having fun, playing sports stuff. We drive back on campus, and all of a sudden, somebody's flashing their car lights at us. So I'm like, we pull over, and then we get out. It's her. And he's like, oh, dude, you got to meet this girl. She's so cute. Like, I'm in love with her. I'm like, all right. So we get out of the car, and then we meet her. She's cute. Yep, that's great. She's a freshman. I don't care. Moving on with life, and we get back in the cars. What'd you think? Oh, she's cute. That's great. Todd, good luck with that. That's awesome. Happy for you, man. I don't really give a rip. So we move on. He goes home for that weekend, and then I go into the cafeteria. And I'm a youth pastor, even though I'm in college. And I walk in and grab my food, and then all of a sudden, these girls go, hey, you want to sit with us? Any dude will always say it's better to sit by cute girls than by yourself, okay? I'm just saying. She says, do you want to sit with us? I'm like, yeah. So I go over, sit with these freshman girls. At that point, I don't care. Just it's better than sitting by myself. So we sit down, and we start talking, and then I tell my youth pastor I'm going to a football game that night. Any football fans in here? Okay. Going to watch some students in my ministry play football, and then they say, can we come too? And I'm like, sure, you bet. So they get in my car, and then we go to the game. and we're hanging out. We watched the game. Just two of them came along, and me and these two girls go watch this game, watch some of my guys in my youth group play football. It's all good. And then we go to McDonald's, and we kind of talk a little bit more. And then I end up talking to one of these girls a whole lot more, and it actually was the girl that Todd liked. And then we hung out all weekend and went to a movie one night. And then Todd came back, and I had to say, dude, sorry about your girl, we're dating now. And then we've been married for 25 years. So, hey, yes, I stole the girl my roommate liked, and I don't care. Anyway, I'm just saying that if there's a girl dating a guy here, no, just kidding. Girls, I'm kidding. Guys, I'm kidding, be respectful. But I'm just saying that for me, the word "and then" has been life-changing. It's changed everything. I did not grow up in a Christian home, and so for some of you guys that sit in a room like this, I was the family that your family told you can't hang out with. That's the family I come from. I don't come from a nice Christian family. I come from a rough background. I come from a background where it wasn't abusive. We just partied a lot. I come from brothers that smoked a whole lot of pot. I come from parents that, had keg parties on most weekends and lots of alcohol, lots of beer. It wasn't abusive. We just partied. And so for me, coming to Jesus was a total and then moment. It started when I was pretty young. I mean, I can remember as a kid growing up, I probably started going to church later, but my first exposure to church was a kid named Curtis invited me to spend the night, and then I said I would. And I went to his house, and his parents sat down, and they prayed over a meal, and I'd never seen that before. And then they invited me to spend another night, and I was like, sure. And then they said, we're going to go to church, and this church had a thing called Sunday school. I don't know if you guys have it or not, but they did. And I was like, who wants to go to school on a weekend? But I'll go. And it really was bad. I didn't like it. And I'd never seen a preacher. His dad got up on stage, and then he talked on and on and on and on and wouldn't shut up. And then we went back to their house, and we played wiffle ball. And I was a little kid at that point in time. I was really young. I'd never seen like a family dynamic like that. I mean, this was my mom's third marriage. We'd had lots of live-in boyfriends that had come and gone in our home. And I'm just telling you, the and-then moment of telling this kid I'd spend the night with him, it transformed my whole life. I was the first one in my family to come to Christ, and now my mom and dad walk with Jesus. It's been a whole legacy change for my children. Yeah. But I'm just trying to tell you that life can be found on the other side of and then. So tonight, we're going to jump in, and this whole week, we're going to talk about this guy named Peter. He's a conversation. We're going to study his life just a bit on moments like this, and tomorrow morning, we're just going to live. Say, his name is Peter. Say, Peter. That's the guy we're talking about all week, okay? If you don't remember anything else, we talked about a guy named Peter. He's in the Bible. My journey is a lot like Peter's. I tend to screw things up. I tend to do things that I shouldn't be doing sometimes. I tend to say things I shouldn't say. And then I find myself in a place I don't want to be often in my life. I'm a lot like Peter. And so if you find yourself kind of in that place sometimes, you're going to identify with him. I'm going to tell you another and then story to introduce this. I was a youth pastor in a place called Tulsa, Oklahoma. We got a woo for Tulsa? Nobody woos Tulsa. It's a great town. Anyway, don't boo Tulsa. That's mean. Youth pastor in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'd been there several years. I've been in SoCal for a while in Orange County, and I moved from Orange County to be a youth pastor in Oklahoma, and I was working with these students, and then all of a sudden they asked me to teach at a school. I was like, it was a Christian school. Anybody here go to a Christian school? A few of you guys? Okay. So I got asked to teach at this Christian school. I did not grow up going to a Christian school. I went 2 years, and I hated it. But they asked me to teach Bible at the school, and I was like, cool. So I go up and I start teaching Bible, and honestly, one day, no one's paying attention. Everybody's talking. I'm like, dude, what's going on? What's the problem? It's all seniors. No one will pay attention to me. And I'm starting to get ticked off. I'm turning into a school teacher instead of a youth pastor. And I get mad. And finally, I'm like, what the heck's going on? I clap my hands. They're like, oh, he doesn't know, does he? It's like, no, I don't know. What the heck's going on? Oh, long story short, one of the coaches had stopped showing up to practice because he had been meeting up with a couple of girls in his office. And he just stopped going to practice. And I was like, whoa. And they just let this guy go, fired him on the spot. It was a big mess. So I walk out of the classroom, and I see the athletic director of this little small school, and I look at him, don't even remember his name. And you ever tell somebody, hey, man, if you ever need something, let me know, but you don't really mean it? Yeah, I did one of those. I look at this guy walking down the hall, and I'm like, hey, Bill. I can't remember what his name was. I was like, hey, man, heard what's going on. I know you're responsible for all the sports in the school. Like, man, everything I can do, just let me know. And I'm like literally kind of saying, let me know as I walk away. He's like, hey, yeah. As a matter of fact, I do need help. Like, I didn't actually mean it, but okay. Like, what do you need? He's like, hey, can you go to practice today and just be there with the boys? I was like 6 of the guys were in probably like 8 of the guys were in my youth group that were on that team. And I knew these boys. I'm like, there's a baseball team. Any baseball players? Softball players, okay? I was not very good. I wasn't great at baseball, but I enjoy the sport. So I show up to this practice, and it literally is, it's like a Disney movie with everybody screwing around, not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Their girlfriends are there with them. They haven't had a coach show up at practice in like 2 weeks. I don't even know why they're still showing up. He's basically just given up because of this whole other life he's leading. And I show up and I'm like, man, fellas, we all know what's going on. I start trying to talk to him and be youth pastor mode. And I'm like, man, I'm so sorry, guys. Just kind of take the day off, play some catch. Go back to teach the next day. Athletic director walks up and goes, hey, can you go back again to practice? I'm like, sure. So I go to practice again. This day again. They're still wearing street clothes. They're playing a little bit of catch. They're hanging out. None of them are practicing. And I finally was like, no, this ain't how this works. I said, boys, if you're supposed to be at practice, have your gear on, be dressed. I said, if you're not dressed tomorrow, I'm going to light you up. You better be dressed and ready tomorrow. And I end up coaching practice for the rest of that week. And it's terrible. I literally like trying to throw the ball up and whiffing. I'm like, all right, third base, and it goes to second or the outfield or like drops in front of me. Totally embarrassing. But I'm the guy right now trying to hold this thing together. And then finally I'm like, okay, we got somebody else to take my place. I want out. I want out of this. I don't want to do it anymore. And then he's like, hey, man, we got a game coming up. Can you go? And I'm like, what? I don't know what the crap I'm doing. I can't coach baseball. He's like, dude, I got to have somebody. Like, soccer's out right now. Track's out right now. I don't have enough people. Can you just cover a game? I'm like, this sucks. They haven't won a game all year at this point. I go to this tournament. He's like, listen, they're going to be out first round. They stink. They'll be done. You can go home. I'm like, all right, I'll go. So I go. I'm wearing, like, shorts and T-shirt, eating sunflower seeds. He's like, the guy blue walks over, the ump walks over, he goes, where's your lineup? And I'm like, oh, crap. I ain't got no lineup. Like, line up, boys. I'm like, make your own lineup. I don't care. So they play. We get beat. We're done. Then I got to go to another game. I'm like, this is stupid, man. Go to another game. And this time we play like the elite school in Tulsa that's way bigger than us, and they just kick our butts royally. First inning, they sort of like 94 runs or something crazy like that. I mean, it wasn't that many, but it was bad. We just get hammered. All of a sudden, we reach that point where they're going to call the game because it's just that bad. And I'm ticked right now because I don't know a lot about baseball, but I'm highly competitive. I hate to lose. I will like lay my life down to win at all costs. It's bad. I have an addiction to winning. But anyway, we're sitting there and I'm talking to this coach and he's like, well, we're done. I said, hey coach, I got a problem here. My boys suck. You know that? He's like, well, yeah. And these guys, like this school is like the rich school with all the fancy stuff. I go to like the tiny little poor Christian schools that I'm coaching for. They like come out in uniforms. I'm like, coach, you ain't getting in. Why do baseball coaches wear uniforms? Can you imagine if basketball coaches did that, how stupid they'd look? Show up in a tank top and a pair of shorts? That's just stupid. Football coaches showing up in pads and a helmet. I'm like, why do baseball coaches wear the dumb pants? You're not getting in. You're old and fat. You ain't playing today. I don't understand. I don't understand why they think they got to dress like the players, but that's a whole other issue. They got these little twin coach guys walking out. Hey, you guys got beat really bad tonight now, didn't you? I'm like, yeah, we got beat really bad, you punk. Shut up. I look at them like, hey, coach, we suck. I know we're bad. I said, here's my question. My boys can play better than this. My question for you is, do your boys need more batting practice? Because my boys need some fielding practice. He's like, I go, what time you got to be at dinner? And he goes, I got an hour. I go, let's play some more. So I go back in the dugout. I look at these baseball players, and I just look at them because I know a bunch of them in my youth group. I'm ticked. I was like, get your butts out of that dugout. Get your cleats back on. Get your gloves back on your hands. You get your freaking rears back out on that field, or I'll cut every one of it. You understand me? Get your butts on the field right now. I'm ticked. And I lit them up. They're like, whew. They run out there. We still got hammered. Long story short, we end up, because we're such a small school and it's a small little district we're part of, every team gets a bid to the state tournament. Everyone can show up. Everybody can come. We are the lowest seeded team there. We're terrible. But I know these boys, and I know they're athletes. I know they don't suck. I've watched these kids. They've been in my youth group. I know on this team are some stud athletes, but they're not a team. So we go through, and I walk out there the very first game. There's a kid named Jackson. And I walk up to the pitcher's mound. I grab the baseball. I walk up to Jackson and say, hey, Jackson, let's win this. He goes, we ain't winning. We're terrible, man. We ain't won a game all year. Like, Jackson, come on, man, let's do this. He's like, no. Got the ball in my hand. I stand right there at the pitcher's mound. I said, Jackson, you see that man sitting in the stands? It was his dad. I said, he has watched you through Little League. He's watched you through travel ball. He's watched you all through high school. This is the last game your dad, he's a graduated senior. This is the last game your dad will ever see you play. Son, I'm asking for one thing. I want one game out of you. And he goes, it doesn't matter, Jayson. I said, the rest of his team can't play. I said, Jackson, if they can't hit the ball, it matters. Put it in his glove. He goes, all right, let's go. He pitched the lights out. I mean, pitched the lights out. We won the first game of the year. Yeah, that's awesome. No joke. No joke. We move into the second game that night, we win another game, which means we have to come back the next day, and we don't have the bus reserved. We're that bad. We literally are scrambling like, we got to drive all the way back from Oklahoma City to Tulsa, get a bus, come back the next day, and then they start teaching about like indicators. I'm like, what the heck is that? Like, I thought those coaches had like a rash or something, scratching themselves, rubbing themselves all over. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, no, that's like, this is steel. I'm like, oh, sweet. Like, on the way back up the next day, you got to do indicators today. And I'm like, guys, I will screw this up. Like, no, just have fun with it. Like, just tell us to do stuff. I'm like, oh, crap. Jackson's dad's like, I'll help you out, you know. He says, I'll coach third some, you coach first, then we'll switch back and forth. I'm like, this is steel. Like, yeah, that's steel. I'm like, sweet. I can tell you to steal. Like, yeah. I'm like, I'm going to try that out sometime. So we keep going. We keep winning. I got to move fast. But I'm not kidding you. These boys start to believe in themselves. And I'm telling you, they're athletes. They're athletic. I mean, they just don't have a coach that believes in them. We make it all the way to the state final game. No joke. State finals. I'll tell you, it was a small school. Small school, small division. We make it to the last game, and I'll never forget. By that time, we got moms and grandmas showing up. So it's like, go team. They're writing their kid's number on there because then they realize what it is. You know, we got people driving it from Tulsa to watch this because everybody hears we're in the finals. All of a sudden, the stands are filling up with parents and grandparents who haven't been there to watch any of the games. We've got momentum right now. We walk into the last game, the state final game, and we're playing a fantastic team. And we start playing, and we are playing out of our ever-loving minds. And then if you're an athlete, do you ever notice that moment in a game where you feel the shift and it's not good? You know what I'm talking about? You ever been in a game and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, whoa, whatever just happened just now does not feel right. That happened in the game. I think it's about the fourth or fifth inning. It's almost like you could feel a cold front come over our team and they just stopped believing. They were done. I could see it, I could feel it. And I remember what happened. I remember we're sitting there, we were batting. I think there's like one or two outs, and our catcher came up. His name's Reagan. Reagan's a big boy. I mean, big boy. Slow as molasses, man. He runs like this. Oh, boom, boom, boom. He does not cover ground quickly. He's just big. Now, I'll tell you this. You won't steal home on Reagan because he'll punish you. You hit his body, it's going to be like, boom, and you're just done and dead. Reagan's just a big old country boy, just big Tulsa boy. Let's go. So he's sitting there. He gets up to bat, and he gets on base. He gets to walk. He's on base. And I remember this moment of looking across and seeing Reagan. I looked across at him, and all my boys are in the dugout. I'm on third base at this point in time. I look across at Reagan, and I go. Reagan looks at me, and he goes, no. No. I look across at Reagan and laughs. He leans over to Jackson's dad, who's coaching first now, and he's like, Coach goes, no. And I go, Reagan goes, no. No. I go, Jackson's dad goes, no. 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 I go, like steel. All of a sudden, the boys in my dugout stand up. They start walking over the fence. They put their fingers through there and like, no. No. I look across, I'm like, go. He's like, no. By that time, I got grandmas going, no, whatever he's saying, don't do it. Don't do it, Reagan. I got other players on the other team going, don't do it, man. Whatever he's saying, it's what it feels like. And I just keep looking at him doing this. He won't follow. He won't follow. I still remember that moment, and it was a shift in the game. He finally just looked down at the ground, put his hands on his knees, and just stopped looking. I mean, I just felt like it could have changed the game if he just would have been willing to follow. If he just would have followed the indicator in front of him, it could have changed the game. We find Peter in this place. If you've got a Bible with you, or maybe use an app, I'm not sure how you do it. Luke chapter 5. We're going to fly through this, and I want to set this week up for you. Luke 5. I want to set this week up. And I want to talk about what it means to follow. If you're still looking for it, that's okay. Keep looking. If you're next to somebody, you want to help them find that, that's fine by me. Luke chapter 5. This is what it says. It says, one day as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, he says, with the people crowding around him and listening to the word of God, he saw at the water's edge 2 boats left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats that belonged to Simon. It's going to be Peter. He asked him to put out a little bit from shore, and then he sat down and he taught from the boat. And when he finished speaking, he said to Simon, who is also Peter, you'll find out about that name change later on this week. He said to him, he says, put out a deep water, let down the net and let down the nets for a catch. And Simon answered, Master, we've been working hard all night and haven't caught anything, but because you say so, we will let down the nets. So picture it. These guys fished all night. They fished all night. They're commercial fishermen. This isn't like bass fishermen or trout fishermen. These are commercial fishermen, fished all night, didn't catch a thing. They're cleaning their nets up. This teacher named Jesus shows up. He gets in their boat. He teaches for a while. And when he's done teaching, he says, hey, let's go out here. Let's see if we can catch some fish. The professionals say, no. When they'd done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and they filled both the boats so full that they began to sink. And when Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, go away from me, I'm a sinful man. For he and all of his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they'd taken. And so were the sons of James and John, sons of Zebedee. Then Simon said to them, Jesus said to Simon, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. From now on, you'll catch men. They pulled up their boats on the shore and they left everything and they followed him. So what does that have to do with us this week? I mean, what's the point? I want to talk a little bit about this interchange between Jesus and Peter. And as you walk in, coming all the way, making the bus rides, and you sit in this room, I think we could have some things in common with Peter. I know for me, whenever I sat in the room just like this as a high school student at an event like this, my reasons for coming maybe weren't as pure as some of your reasons. I think that Jesus, one thing we know from the scriptures, had been pursuing these guys for a long time. Same thing's true in my life. Jesus had been pursuing me for a long time, and I didn't even realize it. I didn't even know it. I mean, honestly, I had a little bit of animosity toward God. I wasn't real open to it at first because, somebody talking about God as a father just sounded weird to me. It was kind of freaking me, especially like dads are people who walk out. Like my first dad, he bailed on, my mom left him when she was still pregnant with me. And I call him Jim. I don't really call him Dad. My second dad, I still remember pulling up to the house in the car with my mom as she screamed and was honking the horn at this house. I didn't even know whose house it was because he was in there sleeping with some other woman. And then boyfriends would come and they would love my mom for a while and then they'd bail on her. And then another guy showed up and he was kind of gruff and mean. And all of a sudden, this whole concept of me walking into a room like this and God as Father is that sucks. I'm not really interested in that. And what I realized is that even though I didn't ever understand, I knew God was pursuing me. Here's one thing I want to tell you. I don't know your story. It's probably really different from mine, but I know one thing we have in common. God's pursuing you. He wants to have a conversation with you this week. Another thing I think is important to notice that Peter was holding on to these nets. He was holding on to these boats, and they were his business. And that's one thing that Jesus says, Peter, I want you to let go of something so I can give you something better. Peter, let go of the nets, let go of the boats, leave that stuff behind. Come with me, I'm going to take you to a better place. And I can tell you that I grew up in a family that held on to some jacked up things. I held on to some things in my family, some things in my life that I thought were really, really important. And when I was willing to follow Jesus and let those things go, I'm just saying from my perspective, what I found is I'm able to be a good dad, a good husband. I found that I'm able to be a person who pursues Jesus and loves others. And I think this week, Jesus is going to ask some of you to give up some things. He's going to ask you, man, you're holding on to that really, really tight. And if you can just loosen your hands for just a minute, in the same way that Peter let go of nets and boats, he's going to give you something way better than you could ever anticipated. I think another thing to realize is that Jesus wasn't what they thought. Again, I told you my issues with approaching God as Father was difficult for me. It was hard for me. And what I thought God was, by the way people talked about him, by the way other people explained him, I was kind of turned off. I wasn't real interested in Jesus. I wasn't real interested in God. It took me a while to engage in this conversation because I thought I knew what he was. I thought I knew who Jesus was. I thought I knew who God was. And what I realized is kind of like Peter, he wasn't what I thought. See, Peter, we could go into all the details, but Peter thinks he knows who Jesus is. He thinks he understands him. But what you're about to find out is that he's only got a fraction of the story. He doesn't know the big picture. And this week, I pray the same for you. For some of you, walk into this place and you're not real sure what to do with worship. You're not real sure what to do with the space. And you think you know who Jesus is. I'm going to ask for just a second for you to lay down your presuppositions, to lay down your assumptions and go, wait a second. Maybe I need to hear this all over again. Maybe I don't truly understand who he is or what he's about. And I'm asking you to just listen to him. There's some other things that play out in this story that I want to tell some of you guys that maybe you've been around church a little bit. There's a cool progression in this story where Peter starts off calling him master and then he eventually calls him Lord. If you got your Bibles open, you can see that tension in verses 5 and 8. He draws him out of this place of this superficial, impersonal relationship where he calls him like sir, mister. He calls him out of that into this deeper relationship. And this week, I think what you're going to find as you pursue this and then story is he's going to call you from one kind of relationship into something deeper. And I'm just saying that power is found when you say and then. Like I showed up this week, I took a charter bus from Arizona, I landed at Biola University. I didn't really know what to do with God or with this week, and then Jesus showed up. Something else you'll find in verse 9, he uses this word that they were astonished. They were astonished. I mean, think about it. They fished all night, didn't catch a thing. Nothing, man. All night, don't catch a single fish. Then they walk out. They throw their nets out because this guy says, throw your nets over here, and both boats about sink because they catch so much. First of all, I'll tell you, they were loaded financially with those two boats. They made a truckload of money. But they were astonished that someone could show up with that kind of power and change everything. I can tell you Jesus did that for me, and I'm trusting he'll do the same for you. That I came from a place that was a bit wild. Again, like I told you, we were the family that your parents tell you can't hang out with. That's who we were. And I watched what he did in my family, and I was astonished. In the same way, he did something as powerful as causing, fish to jump in a boat. He got my stepdad to literally walk into the house one day, pull out every bottle of liquor out of our cabinet. Every bottle, man. Every bottle, and you got to understand, it was Keggers, Budweiser, Jack, just drinking all the time. That's what we did. It was just wild. It was partying, man. It's just who we were. And I watched my stepdad reach up and pull out every bottle, put it into this wheelbarrow, put me in the wheelbarrow, onto every bottle in the truck. I went with him, and I watched my stepdad break every bottle. And in my life, that was as dramatic as what happened with Peter. Because I watched my stepdad go from drinking every night to never taking another drink of alcohol. For him, he couldn't touch it anymore. He'd been alcoholic. And I watched this transformation. I watched my mom. Go this amazing spiritual transformation in her life to where she's a faithful wife. And it's crazy watching that. And I'm just saying, you might be astonished by what Jesus could do if you just let him do his word. You might be astonished at a place in worship. He might completely blow your mind. I'm saying be open to it. But I want you to hear this. Verse 10. Jesus says this phrase, don't be afraid. I think some of us are afraid to meet Jesus. Peter falls down on his face. He says, I'm a sinful man. And I think some of you think, man, I don't know about meeting Jesus this week. Like, you don't know what I was doing on my phone earlier, like last night. You don't know what I was doing with my boyfriend and my girlfriend. You don't know my addictions. You don't know the dark thoughts I've got. And I'm just telling you, What endears Peter is he falls on his face in humility and says, I'm a screwed up individual. And Jesus says, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Jesus doesn't come at Peter with judgment. He comes at him with compassion. And I want to tell you that I don't know where you are or what your story is, but tonight, no matter who you are, where you're at, Jesus comes to this place and he says, I don't want to meet you with judgment, guilt tripping you about everything you've done. I want to meet you with compassion and say, you don't need to be afraid of me. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to harm you. I'm here to leave you in your right mind. This could be an amazing and then story. And it's not only that, Jesus' invitation to Peter, that compassion was inviting. And I can tell you that if a guy like me, growing up in a rough environment, can now stand on a stage and talk to 2,200 people about Jesus, and I'll get on a plane tonight, and tomorrow night I'll be in Michigan talking to 1,700 more students, I'm telling you that Jesus not only wants to heal your heart, but he wants to pull you into a mission. He wants to give you a purpose. He wants to give you something that you can do, that you can own, that can be part of his master plan, that he gives you purpose in life, and he does that with Peter. He doesn't just leave on that boat, but he invites him into this amazing and then story, and Peter's life will never be the same. But the one thing Peter has to do is he has to follow. I remember that day with Reagan on first base. Just looking at him like, come on, man. He just kept staring down at the ground. I mean, I'm standing there on third base, and I'm looking across. I'm like, Reagan, come on, man. No. He won't follow. You can tell he's dealing with frustration. You can tell he's full of fear. And I just want to look at Reagan and go, man, bud, have faith right now. You can do this. Follow this indicator and go. He wouldn't do it. I just watched him stand there. I remember the last time I looked across at him, he looked up, hands on his knees, he looks up at me and just stares at me. I just looked across and I just went. He just dropped his head. And then I noticed, as he stood on first, I watched his left leg digging next to the base. I watched him just shaking his head no, like, pfft. I saw him turn and look down at second base. I saw him turn, and he ran. I couldn't believe it. Blew me away. I watched this guy turn and just take off running for second base, and he's slow. It's like, kaboom, kaboom. I'm watching the pitcher's already got the ball out of the hand on the way, and I'm watching Reagan like closing space slowly. I'm like, Reagan, run. He's just like, I'm like, come on. And I'm just watching Reagan. I'm not even watching what's going on with the ball. I'm not watching anything else. I'm just watching Reagan closing the space, moving from first all the way down to second. I'm like, come on, come on. And I'm waiting like, where is the ball? I'm waiting for the pop time, for this catcher to pop up, snap, deliver that ball like a laser right across the top of the pitcher. The guy on second sitting there, he's waiting. He knows what's coming. We're sitting there, and I'm just watching Reagan, and he's getting closer and closer. I'm like, what in the world, man? I cannot believe it in this moment. And then all of a sudden, he's closing in on second, and I see the ball coming over the pitcher's head. It's late. It's coming in. And all of a sudden, Reagan drops down in this slide that kicks up dust like you would not even believe, man. And the ball comes in, snap, hits the catcher, the second baseman's glove, and I wait for the blue. I wait for the umpire to make the call, and the whole crowd goes silent in that moment as we freeze right then and there, waiting and waiting, and all of a sudden, blue just goes, safe! Yeah! Woo! Woo! Yeah! These boys went on to win that state championship. They did. And I truly believe it's because one man was willing to follow. I don't know your story, but I want you to know this. I believe the God of the heaven is going to give you an indicator. He knows what you're going through. He knows what you're facing. He knows that some of you are here and you're not even sure you believe. He knows that some of you here and you have done some jacked up things. He knows that some of you are here and you want to grow boldly in your faith. We got all different types, and regardless of who you are, He knows your story, and I believe the God of heaven wants to know this week, will you follow? He's given you an indicator, and He'll continue all week long. And the simple question is, will you follow? Jesus, I pray over this space. I pray over this place, God. And Jesus, for young women in this room that have struggled over the past year with their identity, have struggled with what people have said about them, have struggled to come to grips with you, God, I pray in this place they would know that the God of heaven meets them with compassion and not condemnation or judgment. God, for young men in this space that long for purpose, for young men in this space that long for identity, for young men in this place who long for something more than the day-to-day grind they're in, God, I pray they would look across and see that you are calling them to follow. And Lord, I pray that as we build throughout this week, that we'd be willing to dig in and run to where it is you're leading. Without fear, without frustration, but embracing you in absolute faith. Jesus, thank you for teaching us through the life of Peter. May we reveal and learn the same lessons in our own life as well. In we pray. Amen.